An apple a day keeps the doctor away, but a glass of OJ keeps the adversary at bay. Here's Oddjob. Hey, it's time for a glass of OJ. I'm Oddjob. So today, I wanted to talk a little bit about certifications and kind of what they are, what are they worth, do you need to have a certification? If you have one, do you need to maintain it? And what's been my certification past? So there's a lot of certifications that are out there. There's certifications like Security Plus from CompTIA, AWS Essentials, EJPT, CISA, PCI-QSA, MCSE, CCIE. I could go on and on and on. And some of these are related to specific vendors so that it confers kind of an understanding that you know their products and how to install or maintain them. Some of it's general knowledge. Some of it is skill specific. For instance, like the OSCP or EJPT kind of demonstrates literally that you know how to attack systems and do offensive security related activities. But it could be forensics, could be pen testing, auditing, program management, detection engineering. There's certifications for pretty much everything out there. And so, why should you go take a look at them? Well, certs are generally touted by the organizations who put them on as something that helps to impart specialized knowledge, give a shared vocabulary and familiarity with concepts. They also serve as a credential to give one authority or an area of expertise regardless of experience. And that happens a lot. Think about your bias with regards to any kind of credential, be it a PhD where we call somebody doctor, just the surface of it, if someone is Jane Smith or Dr. Jane Smith, which one do you generally give a little more benefit of the doubt or give more credence, or who would you do less to criticize their work? After all, they are Dr. Jane. So, would you question them as much? Would you think critically as much? Or would you be more tending to just take their word as authoritative? So credentials kind of play into that bias. And it doesn't matter whether it's doctor or some kind of certification, licensure. Having that expertise credential does give that to someone. It also increases someone's likelihood of a higher salary in their next hire, their next role. At least that's what they say. You're going to see all kinds of numbers about the average salary someone would expect without the certification. And then they usually try to say it's like 15,000 more or something like that, having a Security Plus versus not having a Security Plus could be $10,000 or $20,000 more that you would make. So that $500, cert or, $2,000 boot camp you may take for it ends up being a whole, very worth it, a good return on your investment. This is starting to sound like colleges, where colleges will say, a bachelor's or a master's or a doctorate's degree gives you so much more money. And it's part of them trying to justify their existence, to justify, maintaining certification, because even though a lot of these may be non-for-profit organizations, at the end of the day, they need money to survive. And so they want to keep recurring revenues going. But also, membership in a lot of these certifications keeps you as part of an alumni, if you will, or part of an organization that tries to share knowledge with each other, training, meets to share practice innovations, and the like. So sometimes when you get a certification, you're joining a community. But how do certs really end up helping you as an individual, and are they worth what they promise? Well, for that, I can really only tell you my story about how certifications have impacted my career and what I've chosen, why I've chosen to get certain certifications. I think I've maybe got a total of 8 certifications in total throughout my career. I think there were a couple Microsoft technical associate certifications. Definitely got the CCENT at one point from Cisco. I did get a CompTIA Security Plus, Checkpoint CCSA, a CCSE. I did get a Fortinet certification at one point. I think a McAfee certification at one point. And I did get the CISSP as well. And I don't remember, except for CISSP once, renewing any other certifications. It's pretty much was only CISSP for just one time that I did a renewal. And so what did they do for me? Well, at the beginning of my career, over 10 years ago, the MTA and Security Plus helped me. I was at a help desk position at my local community college, and I was going to go to my first security engineer role, working towards that. I had been attending hacker conferences a couple times. And I had an associate's degree, but I wanted something security specific. And luckily, my exam center did have free vouchers for Microsoft and the CompTIA, and I was able to pass both of them. Now, the MTA from Microsoft at the time was very vocabulary based. Name a network system that detects network intrusions. Well, that would be your intrusion detection system, right? It would be things like that. Very little application of knowledge. Security Plus had more of that, where they would give you, given scenarios, what type of solution would you recommend for so-and-so, or, what type of threat was this? What type of attack was this? What would be, good password to use here? Name two factors of authentication, those types of things. Those are very good for, the purposes that are given there, right? It gives you a base understanding of the concepts, and it's a shortcut way of being able to show a potential employer that this person can talk to you and stay conversant about these concepts. And, when I was going for my first role in security, luckily, being that it was the same college network, the central office folks knew me a little bit, and we'd worked together, and they knew a little bit of my working knowledge from interacting with me. But having Security Plus and MTA, I think to a degree helped, and gave a little more reinforcement. Again, it's if you have a doctor before your name versus not, you may have the same experience, but just that little extra credential sometimes does give you the edge. And so if other people were applying for that role, I edged them out potentially by that. So it helped when I didn't have InfoSec experience, right? And I think this is one of the catches that we get in InfoSec, which is you can't get a job because you don't have experience, because you can't get a job because you don't have experience, and round and round and round we go. And I was able to break through that with, I think, the certifications. The Checkpoint CCSA and CCSE then, after a couple of years, I was able to get my next job, and my Security Plus, I think, was still good. And I think that helped me with my next job after that. Not only did I have 2 years of security experience at the, statewide community college, but I also had a Security Plus. Again, I think the credential helped me get into that interview screening part. They really valued checkpoint certifications because this particular organization actually went and installed firewalls and installed those types of systems from Checkpoint. So if you didn't have one, you needed to get one very quickly. So I didn't have one. They did hire me. And so within the first 6 months, I needed to have a CCSA. Within the first year, I needed to have a CCSE. Checkpoint certified security administrator, I think it was, or associate, and then security engineer. Engineer allowed you to do a lot of different things with a Checkpoint firewall. If I never had to install a Checkpoint system, I would never get those. Had I been installing Cisco gear, I probably would have went for my full CCNA, CCNP, potentially the security variants of those as well to touch the ASAs, so on and so forth, right? And I think at some point I also got a McAfee certification for their EPO. So I had that at one point. And once I no longer needed them, I just didn't pursue them anymore. Again, they weren't helpful to me because those were very career, very skill specific certifications to maintain. The CISSP helped me when I wanted to go for the next two roles, though, because at that point I had about 7 years of experience in IT and InfoSec, and I still needed to kind of show that I have more broad security understanding. I was going to become an IR engineer at somewhere, and the CISSP, I think, once again helped get me through an interview process to the hiring manager and the CISO to actually demonstrate what my knowledge was and help show them what I've done and what I plan on doing. And it also helps that the CISSP requires 5 years of experience. Not every certification requires you. They may recommend you, but they may not require you to have a certain amount of prior experience. But the CISSP from ISC Squared does require 5 years experience. Now, there's ways you can get around not having a security role, but maybe it's just an IAM role where you helped reset people's passwords as being a system administrator. Well, you can claim maybe a year or two of that. So there are ways to stretch it, but nevertheless, you have to have experience. You also have to have a sponsor who will vouch for that experience. So trying to secure a more valuable certification to demonstrate that not only do you have knowledge, you have lived experience with this. And it tells a potential employer that. And it is a very rigorous test. It's a broad set of knowledge you have to have. You go a bit deep in a couple subjects, and it gives you that overall well-roundedness. And that's exactly what it did for me. And not only did I end up becoming an IR engineer at a place, I also ended up becoming threat and vulnerability management director as well. So I was there for 2 years, and after that, I renewed my CISSP once for, I think, 3 years. And then after that, I didn't do it anymore. I didn't renew my my certification this past year. And, you know, a lot of people make a big deal about, oh, wow, you're no longer a CISSP. You're right. I'm not a CISSP anymore. I no longer put CISSP at the end of my name and my titles, my resumes, my biographies, or anything like that. I don't even put the passive aggressive or satirical, you know, not a CISSP title that some people do. Again, folks who don't have CISSPs, you don't need one in your career. You really don't. At the end of the day, you can have a career without certifications. And some of those people do like to say not a CISSP, you know. And I find that funny in its own regard. But yeah, I'm now not a CISSP. But spending 3 years of these higher levels of my career, I no longer need what the CISSP conveys. You know, I have the experience. I am able to say at one point I had a CISSP. It was valid from, you know, these years to these years, but that's it. And I don't need that anymore. Now my experience speaks far greater volumes than keeping up the CISSP ever does. So why would you want to renew a certification? What's the purpose of that? You know, if you kind of lose the career purpose for it, the getting hired purpose for it after a couple of years, why even keep a CISSP? Why do some people maintain their CISSP for 10, 12 years? And it's because they enjoy the community. You know, ISC Squared, ISACA, several other groups, they are a, you know, major community. They provide a community of practice for people to engage in. You know, it could be online or it could be in person. There's meetups, there's conferences, there are trainings you can go to either online or in person. And by, you know, participating in that community, you can even help to write standards. You can help to comment on other organizations' standards, legislation. There's a lot of ways to get to get involved in your certifying body's community that can help your InfoSec community as a whole. And so it offers a vehicle that some people like joining CISSP or, sorry, the ISC Squared simply to teach the next the next group. They've been there for 5 to 10 years and are like, you know what? I want to start helping develop the exams to make sure CISSP maintains its, I want to say prestige, but its value. And I want to maintain that it is staying up to date, and it is, getting rid of outdated information that we don't need to prioritize anymore. That is very, you have to stay current with your certifications in order to keep doing that in those organizations. And I just found that I wasn't taking advantage of any of those benefits. I could have, I didn't. And, I thought, if I'm not using it, let's not worry about it. It's nothing personal against necessarily ISC squared or CISSPs. It's just I wasn't finding value in the membership. So I left. I found that I could rely on other organizations like ISSA and hacker conferences and other types of online communities where we're able to exchange ideas. We're able to learn. I'm able to network. I'm able to participate in those communities, teach people. And I found value doing that. And, take your pick. It's whatever your pleasure is that you want to do. It just may not be for you to maintain that certification. So that may bring up the question of, okay, where you're at in your career though, what's the next cert? Do you even get another certification? What certs are there now for people who are, in this phase of the career? And I've taken a lot of thought about that. I'm working right now on my CISM, the Certified Information Security Manager certification from ISACA. And being at the level I'm at right now, I think the content, so far as I've reviewed it, seems like it's going to be very valuable to building security programs, being able to manage them, being able to speak to audiences about risk, threats, strategy, as well as showing, again, a base knowledge, despite maybe not having the expertise in all those knowledge sets. But having the knowledge, being able then to begin practicing those areas. At some point I do want to be a CISO, and I don't know where that is in my career. It may be 3 years or 5 years from now, but I want to be a CISO, and CISM, I think, gets me towards that goal. There's a lot of CISOs who never get their CISM, CISA, or even their CISSP. A lot of them have master's degrees or bachelor's degrees. I don't have either of those either. There's a lot to be said for people who have just had really good, rich experience, and that is what characterizes them as a good CISO. Again, the value is more in, I think, getting past HR in many cases. But that's what degrees are for too. And all I've got is an associate's degree. I don't have a bachelor's degree, and I've done really well in my career despite not having a bachelor's degree. Could I make more money? Could I have, done a lot of other things? Well, probably. Maybe other opportunities would have opened up. But I've done well. I've been able to find, a career without having to go into soul-crushing debt for it. And some of that is what degrees, for instance, and this is an entirely different conversation, but, having a degree, what does that really confer in IT and information security? And does it really matter where the degree comes from? All it seems to select for in a lot of cases is the willingness and privilege and ability to go into soul-crushing debt or to get scholarships, for which a lot of times you need privilege as well, or to be part of certain groups that are more benefited or more apt to be benefited by scholarships and programs out there. That's all it seems to indicate is you're in one of those groups of people. You might be excluding a lot of people who simply can't afford and can't go through a full bachelor's degree program. Maybe they can get an associate's degree, or maybe they can do certifications. Maybe that's what they do instead. So that may be something you want to think about is what is getting a certified person really do for your workforce? And, do you really need a CISSP for an entry-level role? that makes no sense. You have to have 5 years already. It's not entry level if it's 5 years, right? Maybe, do you need a security plus, or do you need someone who just knows what's in the security plus, but they're not certified? Take time to interview people, especially if it's an entry level role. Don't overlook people because they didn't have security plus. But I digress. At some point I do want to be a CISO, and I also want to see what ISACA has to offer. What do their conferences look like? There is not a really good local ISC squared group that I've been able to find here in my area. ISSA, I have a good group I meet with frequently. And I know there's an ISACA group. In fact, I will be speaking at an ISACA meetup on October 25th in the Indianapolis area. So that'll be really fun. Be sure to attend that. But I want to see what that community is like, and I want to see if there's, some good networking and value I can gain from being a part of that community for a bit. And if I continue to derive value from joining and participating in that community, then I'll probably continue to put my efforts into maintaining the certification, doing your CPEs and all of that jazz. That's also fun. I also want to get an OSCP at some point. As a CISO, I will probably never need to penetration test something or, go and compromise a system. But I like doing it. I like getting into Hack the Box. I like going into Try Hack Me. I like playing in Pros versus Joes at not Blue Team Con, B-Sides Las Vegas. I like playing in Capture the Flag, attack defense contests. I still like doing that. That's one of the whole reasons I got into this industry, was hacking and wanting to be an attacker for good and enjoy those activities. And so the OSCP in and of itself is a certification that's not knowledge based. It is applied knowledge. You have to actually break into systems that they provide for you. And then you have to write a report on it like you're a pen tester. So you're going to write a good report too. Passing the OSCP shows very strong capabilities to carry out these activities. And it's also a great challenge. I've seen a lot of people, hit their head against their desk because, it's a 24-hour exam, and it was only in the last hour that they thought to do lateral movement once they got administrative access to a system. And they couldn't figure out why they couldn't get into other systems. Well, did you try doing lateral movement, getting credentials, harvesting, and moving throughout the environment? Pivot. That's a lesson to be learned there. And being able to do that in a fairly good scale would be a good challenge. So I like doing it. It's good sport. And at the end of the day, too, it would help me as a CISO, again, to maintain my knowledge in offensive techniques so that I would also, as a CISO, be able to, help my team develop controls and detections and methods, but also be able to communicate to stakeholders, my peers, and the board of business about what techniques are really possible in the environment and where investment needs to be put to ensure we can't be hit by those as hard or can recover very quickly from those. So, those are two certifications I may be going after, and for different reasons. So should you work towards the certification? The only certification I see, especially for entry-level folks, that I think would be the most important are things around cloud. So GCP with Google, AWS with Amazon, and Azure with Microsoft. They all provide essentials or fundamentals-based trainings as well as certifications. I think some of them are free or very low-cost training and or certification exam. And then you can even get into the analyst level of trainings. I recommend those first. We are now into a place where on-premises understanding of technology is less important to have out the gate. It used to be 10 years ago, you needed to understand systems administration. You needed to understand, networking. You needed to understand how to subnet. You needed to understand OSI model. A lot of that breaks down once you go to the cloud. The fundamentals and concepts of still designing systems or, computing and everything, that still exists. It's just we use containers more often than we use VMs. We use VMs more than physical servers because that doesn't really exist in the cloud. We don't really use firewalls in the cloud. We use security groups. We don't use routers. We use, well, their routes up in the cloud, but they're not layer 3. Layer 2 and layer 3 is very murky up in the cloud. It's cloudy, it's nebulous. And so, you can microsegment everything. You can have a layer 2 up in the cloud, that, or a layer 3, a network that everyone's a part of, a VLAN, if you will. And you can say this system is not allowed to be talked to by anybody on any port. And no one can just go and talk to it. Unlike a physical network where, anything on the same VLAN can talk to each other. So that microsegmentation level with software-defined networking is there, and it's very different. And people who have an on-premises knowledge have a really hard time getting into cloud because none of it makes the sense that they do on their on-premises alternatives. So having that knowledge first out the gate is probably going to be more important than focusing on your on-premises stuff. You can learn that stuff later, no problem. But 10 years ago, we didn't have all these avenues to learn things about the cloud. A lot of people were saying don't go to the cloud because it's not secure and trying to keep everybody scared of the cloud. Now we need to completely embrace it. It's here to stay. And in fact, it's now kind of almost not a thing of the past, but it's just well established. And we need to fully embrace it. And so entry-level certifications exist, entry-level experience exists, and quite frankly, if you get your basic certifications out of the way with whatever platform, you now are more experienced in cloud than a lot of people who have spent 10 years in IT. And so that in and of itself is really good. And so, you should be able to find some entry-level roles with those certifications. And again, that gets you in the door, that gets you started. And then depending on what you want to do from there, you may need other certifications to ease your way in, to grease the gears, or you may not. You may be able just to, coast the rest of the way on your experience and learning yourself without, certifications. So yes, if you want to work towards a certification and it's going to help you, absolutely do it. But just understand, maybe you don't need to renew the certification. Maybe you need to go on to something else, carve out a path for yourself. But I think the thing is always be learning new things and always find and entertain new ways of learning and new ways of finding methods that you've never heard of and seen before, regardless of whether it's tied to a certification or not. So tell me what your thoughts are in the comments. What certifications are you going after? And what certifications as a hiring manager do you like to see? Do you have exclusivity where you only accept applicants who have certain certifications? Is it because you need that technical expertise in like a Cisco switch or Juniper firewall? Or is it just you think that certification has the really good indicator for you that this is going to be a very competent and serious individual? Tell me about that. Tell me your thoughts in your comments and also on social media. And I'll see you in the next one.